Hi, I'm Choi. I'll be going over the Week 8 pen testing challenge. So a brief overview, it's mostly going to be about a live demo, but I just wanted to go over the objective and the overview of the demo because it was 2 weeks ago and maybe some of you guys just forgot about it. So yeah, so the objective of the demo was to go over the basic methodology of penetration testing and importance of penetration testing report because penetration testing is not all about like hacking and getting root. It's actually providing business value to the client through penetration testing report. And yeah. So for the demo, we had 4 challenges, 2 easy, 1 medium, 1 hard. And we had only 2 flags because other 2 was sign-offs. And the report, it was optional, but I think only 1 or 2 people did it. So that was pretty sad. But yeah, let's go to the live demo here. So since the contracting and the scope of engagement was already done for us, we only had to start with information gathering and enumeration. So we were provided with an mmap scan from Scott. We had TCP scan and UDP scan. So let's take a look. If you take a look at it, like there's a lot of services, but there's a lot of like quote unquote trap services as well, such as like Leet 25565 for Minecraft reference, Elite, and 65535. Those things doesn't really do anything. It just like outputs hack me, my Minecraft server is down. So we can pretty much just ignore these. So some of the important services that we can perform some enumeration on would be FTP, SSH, SMTP, HTTP, and we actually have another HTTP. So we have 2 web servers here. That should be noted too. All right, so moving on, let's start with web servers because you can start from like other services, but most of the time web servers have a lot of information inside them. You can do some information gathering around it. Just take a look around the target, I'll say. So if you take a look, yeah, the CSS is not really going on here. Just a bunch of random informations, but we also have this Meet Our Executive section that has a LinkedIn profile of a senior system admin. So what Scott and I were looking for here was the usage of OSINT, open source intelligence, and yeah, having a public LinkedIn profile page of a executive on your company's landing page is not a good idea. So if you actually go to here, actually it should be here, yeah. This guy shows up and you can do some like information gathering about this person. Since he is the senior system admin, chances are he has some like really sensitive information. So if you like go around, he loves worst 500 password word lists. We don't know what they are, but we can probably Google and find it. And if you look around, he claims that he is talented in configuring services on a virtual machine. Sounds a lot like our target machine. So our next logical step will be, okay, so this guy made this VM, and this guy also says that there are 500 password word lists that he uses often, so we should probably perform some kind of a brute force attack on one of the services. So one of the logical approach will be using performing brute force on some kind of a admin page on a web server. However, it's a rabbit hole. If you actually try to find the directory listing through brute forcing, you'll find that there is a login page. But if you go on it, we download it, which means that the web server is not configured to process PHP. And if you like download this PHP file and like go through it, you'll quickly find that it's a rabbit hole. It doesn't really provide any meaning. So where are we going to brute force? I'm thinking of FTP or SSH, pretty much one of the famous services which has authentication that we can brute force into. Not sure about SMTP, maybe Samba, and maybe MongoDB as well. But for the time being, I'm just going to give you guys the answers because I don't have that much time. It is FTP. So let's perform a brute force on FTP using the username Hunter, using 500 password list. It's on GitHub. If you just Google it, like the first thing pops up is GitHub from SecList, and SecList GitHub has a lot of like juicy default credentials, default passwords, and payloads. So yeah, that's pretty useful. And 500 worst password is one of the SecList. So yeah, we do that. We provide the IP address, which was also given by Scott. We are going to brute force FTP. We shouldn't really do this, thread of 50 in a live environment, but for the time being, we don't have much time, so I'm just going to speed things up. Verbose and F will be like, if you find one, we're just going to like exit Hydra. So we successfully found Hunter and password Canada. That was the easy one flag, Hunter Canada. So we can actually FTP into it. So there are a lot of things to go and perform enumeration on FTP when you have it. First of all, you have to check where you are in. Second of all, like, can we actually access another directories? Like, can we go to roots? Can we go to like home? Are we allowed to do it? And another thing to look for is, can you download the file and can you upload the file? You should probably look at all of these, like, you should look at what kind of privilege and what kind of privilege you have. So let's go back here. Let's actually try to upload a file. So let's put write permission, permission denied. Let's go to temp, since if you go to temp, we have like world, read and write. So we should be able to write here, but it's also permission denied. So that means the system admin have blocked the write permission. So we don't have any write permission, but we might have read permission, which means we can probably download a file from this box. Yeah, so we are able to download files. So in FTP, what you can get out of it is that you can read any, well, you can read a file if you have privilege, but you cannot upload any. So let's move on to easy 2, which was about MongoDB. I'm just going to go really brief about it. MongoDB comes in, like by default, it doesn't have authentication. So if you have installed MongoDB, if you face it towards the internet and you start using MongoDB, anyone can probably just access it like this. So what Scott and I were going for is that some of the default configurations can be extremely dangerous, and you could like write this on your report as well. So yeah, the second flag comes like this. So anyone can view MongoDB because it comes with no authentication by default. So moving on to Medium. Medium challenge, I won't really go into details about it because it was mostly focused on like enumeration. You could go over all of these TCP ports that were open, like SMTP, Samba. You could go over that, try to perform any kind of enumeration that you can do. And if you find a vulnerability, report it right away. If you don't find it, you don't have to report it. But yeah, that was Medium. And for the hard part, you were supposed to find a remote code execution. So if you have done easy 1 and 2, and if you have done Medium, then chances are you're only going to find out that the only one service that you haven't really messed around with is the second web server, the Apache, that's running on 42429. So when you have a web server, chances are you probably want to visit it using your browser. So when you visit it, you have find it, and you have a lot of pictures of Gary. So I have no idea what we should find, but let's look at the source code. It doesn't really have anything. If you go to robots.txt, it doesn't really have anything. So let's perform a directory listing brute force on this web server. So let's do a go buster. Yep. Yeah, it's written in Go, and it's for, I guess, terminal. Yeah. So I like using this because my my laptop is really bad with performance. So yeah. So this might take some time, but Let's perform this. Again, thread 50, highly not recommend this, but we don't have time, so what did I do wrong? That was too much. And if you try to do, if you try to find some kind of a directory on this web server, you'll quickly find that it's not there. Like there is no directory. So, okay, the next logical step is probably finding files, such as a file that ends with PHP, JS, JavaScript, or HTML. And if you do this, we will going to find a, well, index HTML, of course, but a shell PHP. So we have found shell PHP. So let's go and take a look at it. And nothing shows up. If you go to like source code, of course it's PHP, so nothing will show up. But yeah, so we have a file that's called shell PHP that looks really sensitive, that we want to read from, but we cannot read from our browser. What we can do is, since we have the FTP, which we had the read permission, we can actually use FTP to probably download shell PHP. But first, in order to do that, we have to know some of the basic configuration of Apache, such as its document root, like where Apache files are stored at in this machine. So for that, let's go to etc. And since it's Apache, it will be an Apache 2. And let's download apache2.config. I believe it's the global configuration file for Apache, and for virtual hosts, there is another configuration file called 000 tag default.config. So let's download both of them and take a look at it. So this one is the basic Apache 2 global configuration files. There's a lot of, you can go through and see how, what each line means, but for the time being, I'm going to jump to 000 tag default.configuration, which is more specific to one type of a website, I would say. So here you can see that there is server admin and there's document root, which means all of the file that's hosted by Apache 2 is at var and space. So let's go there. And if you look at it, we do have shell.php. So let's actually get that file and see what it does. And if you get it, we have a very obfuscated, messy one-liner PHP. So you'll probably have this right off the bat. And if you just plug it into PHP beautifier like online, or you can do it by hand, but if you perform some kind of if you give it white spaces such as new lines and tabs, it becomes this. And this is still really not fun to look at. It's still kind of obfuscated. So we can probably take out these integers by just adding and subtracting them. And this shows up. So this code, it still looks really messy because of the variable names, but if you look at the big picture, we get the request. I believe underbar request can be get, post, or cookie, but since post and cookie is not specified, we can assume that it gets the parameter through get request. So it's going to be AF5 as parameter name, and it's going to get the value of AFI, put it into JF9D, and we're going to just feed it to function I, which is function I is over here, and this L42 D2 and JF9D, which is our value of our get request, will be plugged in here. And through this for loop, we're going to iterate through that string. So let's change the variable name because that was really messy to look at. And we come with this. We have a function I that takes a user input, and we have a terminal argument set as empty string at first. And what this terminal argument will do is it's going to keep change within the for loop. We don't know what that for loop does right now, but it doesn't really matter. We're just looking at the big picture. And after it's been modified by the for loop, it will go into the system. And system is like performing a terminal command. So I guess the most important part will be this for loop. So we are going to iterate through the input, user input. We're going to jump by 2. That's pretty interesting. But we also see that we concatenate with counter and counter plus 1. So what it does is, even like, for example, the first round, counter will be 0. We're going to concatenate input index of 0 with input index of 1. So after that, it will going to go through hex stack, which converts hexadecimal to decimal. And after that, it's going to convert into ASCII character. So all in all, what it does is, if you put in a hexadecimal, it will convert into ASCII and put it into system. So if you do like 6C73, which is ls in ASCII, it will perform a remote code execution. So let's actually try that. With shell.php, the parameter name was AF5. So if we do this, we have successfully performed remote code execution. Like, for example, if you don't do this, like, nothing shows up. But if you do this, we have code execution. So this was more than enough for like getting a sign off for a hard challenge. If you want to like really push it, you can probably get a reverse shell. Since we already know shell.php is PHP and the web server is running PHP, the next logical step is, well, we can probably use PHP reverse shell with this. So let's do a nc netcat opener. And fire away. And we get a shell. So after this, this is like a little bonus, but what I like to do is check for Python. If you have Python, we can upgrade our shell to sudo pty. So we have a sudo terminal right now. We can background it with Control Z. We can do a stty tech raw tech echo. Foreground it with FG. It doesn't show up, but I did type FG. And then reset it. Set the terminal type to xterm. And now we have to export term with xterm. And now we have a fully functional shell that we can just do Control C, which, by the way, if you do a Control C in netcat shell, you will just kill netcat. But since this is a fully interactive shell, we can do a Control C. We can do a tab completion like this. We can do vim without any problem. It's read-only, but still you can do vim. So all in all, you have a fully functional shell on the target. So yeah, that was hard challenge. And that's about it. Thank you.